It works. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Sturbridge Historical Society. If you were here in January, where we had a very successful program. We almost had to rent Gillette Stadium before we got going with it. But yeah, we had a great program. I'm going to read a few things for you so I don't miss anything. We're discussing coming up with a board of directors. Again, believe it or not, we once had one. As part of our articles of incorporation, the Historical Society is to be overseen by a board of 12 directors elected by the membership. For various reasons, this board has not been voted on or active for many years. We think it's time to restore the board. Anyone who is a dues-paying member of the society is eligible to be a director. We would anticipate meeting at least 4 times a year. Responsibilities would include establishing goals and policy for the society and overseeing implementation of those, as well as continuing our programs and managing and increasing membership. If you are interested in becoming a director, please submit your name to us. We will hold a membership meeting prior to either the April or May programs to vote on a slate of directors. And also, before I even go any further, once again, we'd like to thank the Public House for making the space available for us and the light refreshments. They're so gracious to do that, and we certainly appreciate it all year long. Okay, on upcoming programs for this spring. Thursday, March 27th, Bill Reed will present Notable and Notorious, Curious and Infamous Characters from the Last Green Valley. Join Chief Ranger Bill Reed as he shares some of the stories of the many interesting and important people, as well as colorful characters who have lived in this region. Thursday, April 24th, myself will present a program, America 250, The Revolution Comes to Sturbridge. This year is the 250th anniversary of the beginning of the American Revolution, April 19th, 1774. 75, yeah, 74. So we thought it'd be appropriate in April to do a program on the American Revolution. And finally, Thursday, May 22nd, our own Wally Hersey will present the Sturbridge Bicentennial. In 1938, Sturbridge celebrated its 200th anniversary of the founding of the town. This celebration included a highly choreographed pageant representing the history of the community. Mr. Hersey will discuss this celebration and present a restored version of a film taken at that time. Really, really interesting. I've seen snips of it, and it's really fun to watch. You'll enjoy that. So that's Thursday, May 22nd. Tonight, the subject is Covered Bridges of Massachusetts by Rich Paradis. 19th century New England covered bridges, those iconic wooden structures that feature a roof and siding to protect the bridge's wooden beams from harsh weather, are considered a testament to early American engineering. Once seen everywhere, today there are only a dozen covered bridges left in Massachusetts, and some of them are on private property. Rich has managed to photograph them all and will provide a detailed description and how to find them. Rich will open his talk with a brief discussion of the different methods of bridge construction, followed by a review of the existing Massachusetts bridges. And no talk on covered bridges would be complete without bringing up the Grattan family's business in New Hampshire. During the flood control of the 1950s, Grattan Associates was hired to remove covered bridges from the rivers that were in the floodplain. This process started their unique career of restoring and building new covered bridges. Milton Grattan, who started the business, wrote the book, The Last of the Covered Bridge Builders. Rich has a signed copy of this book, which will be on display at his talk, right over there on the table. Rich Paradis, as many of you may remember, was last year's Stonewall guy. That was another one where we had to remove furniture to fit all the people in the room. He's also a huge fan of covered bridges and has studied them for years. Since moving to Sturbridge in 2002, Rich has been an avid hiker on our local trails. For the past 14 years, he has been a member of the town Trails Committee. He has volunteered his chainsaw skills to the committee and at numerous places around the town following the 2011 tornado. I can vouch for that. He helped take out some trees that blocked my driveway. He is also a recent member of the Historical Society and has worked to help develop programs and presentations for the group. And this program is generously hosted by the Public House. So please welcome Rich Paradis.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. I know it's a rainy night, it's a little cold, but it's about freezing. How exciting is that? Sorry, I can't get up my cord here. Okay, tonight we're talking about covered bridges in Massachusetts, and so, there we go. Covered bridges are built of timbers. These timbers are held together with turned wooden pegs known as trunnels. The original name of the tunnel was a tree nail. That's the medieval name for it. They're made on lathes now because the more accurate they are, the better they hold. Sure. Better? Okay. Bridge design. This is an example of a how truss. There was, back in the last century, several people patented bridge designs. Ithiel Howe of Thomaston, Connecticut, patented this design of bridge. It became very popular because you didn't have to do a lot of mortising. You could just lay the pieces on and peg them together. Excuse the glasses. He received the patent for this in 1820. For anybody who's interested, he's actually buried in New Haven at the Grove Street Cemetery. This is known as a burr arch. This particular one is the only burr arch bridge in Massachusetts. And in 1930, the width of the arch was doubled to strengthen the bridge. Thomas Burr was born in Torrington, Connecticut. There's also another bridge designer named William Howe. He's actually from Spencer, Mass, and he received the patent on the Howe Truss Bridge, which is a very popular railroad bridge in 1840. So, speaking of the gratings, I have two bridges that are not in Massachusetts. This is in Stowe, Vermont. It is the first covered bridge built in the 20th century. The last one was built in 1899. This one was built in 1969 to 1970. And it happens to be one of the prettiest bridges you will ever see. And it's right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, so it's really hard to photograph because you have to like stop on people's lawns, which I don't like doing. This bridge here has two names. Most bridges have 2 to 4 names. The original name of the bridge was the Union Street Bridge because it's on Union Street. There is another bridge 4 miles upstream and another one 4 miles downstream than this. So all the locals call it the Middle Bridge. So The plaque on it actually says Middle Bridge. This is, it's a Howe Truss Bridge. And this is a good picture of a Howe Truss Bridge. It's held together with wooden pegs called trunnels. They're 2 inches thick, and there's a square end on them that they put a metal cap over when they're pounding it together so that it doesn't damage the pin. Howe Truss bridges are quite strong. They're very stiff. This particular bridge is about 98 feet long, which is very typical for a covered bridge, a single-span covered bridge. This is another good shot of the trunnels on the end. They're actually round, but the ends are squared. This is the back side of the bridge, which for some reason is painted white. And you can see the plaque up on top, it says Middle Bridge. And most covered bridges in Vermont have a plaque somewhere on them describing when they were built, who built them, and a lot of them even have information on where to find the Covered Bridge Society of Vermont. This is the other bridge. Now that particular bridge, the Middle Bridge, is about a 3-hour drive from here. And if you're ever in Vermont, it's worth the trip. It is just such a pretty bridge. This is another hour north of there. It's in Windsor, Vermont, and it goes over to the Cornish side of New Hampshire. It's a triple-span bridge. It is the longest covered bridge in the United States. One of the reasons I included this bridge, that's the 3rd span. I couldn't get it all in the same photograph. One of the reasons I included this bridge is this right here. Lafayette actually crossed this on June 28, 1825, on his way to New Hampshire, on his way to Vermont, to come down to eventually Sturbridge. And since we just had the reenactor here this summer, I thought I'd include the picture. This is about 20 minutes from here. This is the Gilbertville Ware Bridge. It's in Ware, Massachusetts. Excuse me for the microphone. I'm just trying to find it on my notes. It is quite a long bridge. It's 137 feet long, and it's a Howe Truss bridge, but it's a doubled up Howe Truss bridge. The trusses are much closer together than they normally are. This bridge was originally built in 1886, and it was rebuilt in 1986. And if you go down Route 32, as soon as you get into Ware, it's on your left, and amazingly, it's on Bridge Street. You wouldn't believe how many covered bridges are on a street called Bridge Street. This is the doubled up Howe Truss design. Town Truss design. That it's all pegged together, and it's a very stiff bridge. It's also a very long bridge. This is another shot of the construction. Most covered bridges have what's known as a traffic barrier, like a guardrail, to keep cars from whacking the construction. This is the roof. Again, very strongly framed. And it also has a plaque on it. Most covered bridges do have a plaque on them. This is the Burkeville-Conway covered bridge. It's not a very long bridge, but it's very pretty. It is a king post bridge. Find my notes here again. This particular bridge is 106 feet long. It was originally built in 1871. It was rebuilt in 1999. And it's in the town of Conway. It has the round steel rods are original. The square steel posts that are in it were added when they rebuilt the bridge to strengthen it. And this is another really good shot of the original round steel rods and the square posts that were added. And again, it also has a plaque. This one's got an unusually nice plaque on it. This is the Creamery Bridge. It's quite a short bridge. It is 40 feet long, was built in 1985, and it's dab smack in the middle of somebody's driveway, as you can see their house on the other side of the bridge. This one's on private property. The dogs were barking at me when I was taking pictures of it. It goes over the Creamery Brook. And nothing too special about it other than it's not a very long bridge. And this is the inside roof frame. This is known as a queen post bridge. You can see the large square timbers on the sides that are holding the bridge up instead of the slats like the town bridge. And of course, since it's in their driveway, they keep junking it. This is the smallest covered bridge that I have found in Massachusetts. It goes over a little brook that's right near a sugar house on a farm. It is 40 feet long. No, I'm sorry, it's 20 feet long. It's Gray's Sugar House Bridge, it's known as. It's on private property. It's a King Trust Bridge. It's at 36 Barnes Road in Ashfield, for anybody that wants to venture out there. They're not very friendly about having people take pictures of the bridge. I got a lot of dirty looks when I was walking across the field taking pictures of it, so I don't recommend it. That's another shot of the bridge. Okay, this is the Bissell Bridge. This one is in Charlemont, Massachusetts. It was built in 1951. It was rebuilt in 2009. It's 94 feet long. And it's a long through truss, it's known as. This is an extremely heavily built bridge that has a lot of truck traffic going over it. I don't have the road. It is Poland Road, and it's in the town of Conway. It goes over the Deerfield River in the town of Conway. No, I'm sorry, wrong bridge. It's at 39 North Heath Road in Charlemont, and it goes over the Mill Brook. It's 94 feet long. I have good directions for most of these. If anyone is interested, I have up here, I have GPS coordinates for all these bridges if anyone really wants to find it and can use GPS, which I can't. This is a modified long truss bridge. It has a lot of steel work in it because it carries tractor trailers. This is a very dangerous bridge to photograph because it's kind of narrow, and you end up running in and out of it a lot because there's cars coming. But again, it's mostly pegged, as you can see, and there is some steel work in it holding it together because it's just such a heavily used bridge, and it's got so many trucks going over it. This is another shot of the framework on it. That's the roof framing. Now the roof actually is structural on most covered bridges. It hold the pieces, the floorboards and the framing on the roof hold the sides upright. If the sides are not perfectly level, it compromises the strength of the bridge. And this is another shot of some other steel rods holding it together. And this particular type of bridge, the posts go through the floor of the bridge, so they have siding on them to protect them from the elements. It's the only one I've seen in Massachusetts like this. And this is the Arthur Smith Bridge. Sorry about the glasses, but I can't see this without it. It is in Coleraine, Massachusetts. It goes over the North River. It's a Burr Bridge, Burr Truss Bridge, the only Burr Truss Bridge in Massachusetts. It's on Lionsville Road, and it's 98 feet long. It was built in 1868, rebuilt in 1896, and rebuilt again in 2006. And you can see the arches. They're twice as thick as they normally are, and that was added in the 1930s to stiffen up the bridge. And as you can see, it's not very wide, and the curbing along the side gets hit by cars quite often. This is another one that's quite dangerous to photograph. There's no room for you and a car in this thing. There's some more of the framework. And that's a nice shot of both arches. The arches are actually structural. They sit on angled granite blocks that are below the bridge. The only problem with covered bridges is they're not bolted to anything. So if the water comes up high enough, they just float away, which is what happened to the one at the village. Here's another shot of the extremely heavy framing in this bridge. And somebody wrote a little poem and put a plaque up on the inside, which is not all that uncommon in a covered bridge. This is the Green River Pumping Station Bridge. It's the only one that's actually owned by the state of Massachusetts. It is on the Green River in Greenfield, Massachusetts. It's 94 feet long. It's also known as the Eunice Williams Bridge because it's on Eunice Williams Avenue. Why, I don't know. Or Eunice Williams Drive, I'm sorry. But you can tell it's a state bridge because not only is it have a lot of extra steel in it, it's the only bridge I've ever been on that has sprinklers. That's what those pipes are overhead, is sprinkler pipes. I've never seen that before. This is the Goodrich Bridge this is actually in Stanley Park in Westfield, Mass. It's a very lightly constructed bridge. It's only 40 feet long. It was built in 1965, and it goes over a pond. And it's owned by the town of Westfield. It's very pretty. They drive maintenance vehicles over it, but I wouldn't drive anything else over it because it's just It's just not that strongly constructed, but it's a freestanding wooden structure held together with pegs, so it counts as a covered bridge. Not a very strong roof system. And again, somebody wrote a poem, had a plaque made, and hung it up. This is the old covered bridge in Sheffield, Massachusetts. Here we are. It is over the Housatonic River in the town of Sheffield. It's 93 feet long. It was built originally in 1837, rebuilt in 1854, and in 1998. It's also known as the Upper Sheffield Bridge, the Sheffield Bridge, or the Old Covered Bridge. So this one has 3 names. And it's pedestrian traffic only. And it's a pretty bridge though. And again, it's a town trust. That's how far apart they normally are. I mean, the trusses are normally that far apart, unless the bridge is extra long, and then they double them up. Not much in the line of vehicle curbing, but again, it's only a pedestrian bridge at this point. This is the Pepperell Bridge. This is another really strongly constructed bridge. There's a lot of traffic on this bridge. It's in East Pepperell, Massachusetts. It's 108 feet long. It goes over the Nashua River. It's also known as the Nehemiah Jewett Bridge, the Pepperell Bridge, and the Charles Waters Bridge. It's got 4 different names. This one is, again, extremely heavily built. This is a modified Pratt construction. With the steel rods are original to the bridge. The modified Pratt is typically used on railroad bridges, but because this one takes so much traffic, they decided to use that. You can see the framing in here. There's an awful lot of metal bolts in this thing. It does not a lot of wood fasteners. The wood fasteners actually last a lot longer than the metal bolts. And that's the roof. Again, very heavy framing in this bridge. And it has a pedestrian walkway on the outside, which at this time of year, by the way, you can't use because it's covered with ice. So fortunately, I took this picture in the summer. Now, you'll notice the windows on the side. They started putting windows in the bridge, in covered bridges, about 1850 or so. They were losing a lot of them to storms, windstorms. And they found that cutting large windows in them let enough air through to where the bridge wouldn't blow over. This is in Old Sturbridge Village. This is the original bridge that was the entrance, one of the entrances to the village. It's the Dummerston, Vermont Bridge. This bridge was up in Vermont, and it was a huge bridge. It was about 140 feet long, and it was a double span bridge. And the Grayton family cut this bridge in a section out of this bridge to bring it down here, and they built the foundation to fit the bridge because it's an arch foundation. I mean, it's an arch style bridge. It's not a burr arch, but it's an arch. And this one this is the one that's below the dam. over the Quinebaug River. And you can see the arches on the inside. That's a much better picture of the arches. And the doors at the end are so you can't sneak into the village. There's actually some interesting boards on the side that describe some of the features of the bridge. These arches are not one piece; they're seamed in the middle, which is very unusual. It's the only bridge I've ever seen like this. And this is the one that's where that used to be. In 1951, the Grayton family brought the previous picture bridge down, and they put it at the entrance to the village. And 4 years later, we had the flood of '55, and it floated away. So, because again, they're not attached to anything. When the water gets high enough, they float. So they built this one to match. Unfortunately, for covered bridge people, this bridge is made of steel and concrete, and there's just a wooden bridge sitting on top of it because they built it so they could get buses across it. But again, it's a house truss. It's a very nice bridge. They keep it in very nice repair. It's got a good roof framing. And that's the end of my talk. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
What is the preferred lumber, timber for the structure?
The preferred timber for the structure is whatever you can get. When they built them here originally, they built them out of hemlock because we had a ton of hemlock around. Some white, and it's stronger than white pine. Most of the newer bridges now are built out of Douglas fir because they get it in very long lengths, and it gets shipped across the country by rail. That's what the Graytons use for most of their bridges. They use Doug fir. Anyone else have a question? Yes, sir.
If it was being built in 1850, what method did they use to start on land and keep the individual pieces on a level so that they could continue to build one side and then build the other way?
The same way they do it now, actually, it's the same way they did in 1850. They lay the bridge out on the ground, and they put it's about a 1 foot arch in the bridge for every 100 feet or so of bridge that they build. And they pick out the timbers and look for some that are a little bit warped, and those are the ones they use for the arch. They build the two sides. They built one first, and then they put some blocking down. They build the second one on top of it, so they match. It's very important that they match for the strength of the bridge. Then they stand them up, brace them, and peg them together. The whole bridge is built. The bridge that I showed you that the Graytons built in 1969, the first one they built it on the street because there was no other place to put it because it's in a residential neighborhood. So they built it on the street, and then they put cribbing. I'm sure you've seen houses up in the air on big timbers, 4 to 6 foot long timbers. They make a square out of them, and they just keep jacking the house up. That's how they put the bridge out. They build cribbing, and they put a track, and they just roll it on. They roll it on trimates, and they roll it into position. You just got to do it really slowly because you don't want it to get out of hand. Yes, sir.
Did you say this last bridge was?
This is at the village. This one is Howe Truss, I believe. No, it's not Howe Truss, sorry. Howe Truss is railroad. This is a,
Ithiel Town,
yeah, Ithiel Town Truss, yes.
that's the one that floated away.
No, this is not the one that floated away. The one,
That's the one that floated away.
this one's concrete and steel and it's bolted.
That's the one below the dam, it's concrete and steel. This is the one that's in the village that floated away.
Did I get that backwards?
Got it backwards.
You know, you're the second person.
6 years.
You're the second person tonight that's told me that. I did get it backwards.
The other one's concrete, it's a reproduction.
Right.
And that's an original one, which was a gift.
I know they have one original and one steel one. I had them reversed. My apologies. Yes, ma'am.
It's that one right there.
Yes, this one right here. The other one is around the corner. If you go over this bridge and you get over by where the sawmill is, there's a small road. It's called the Riverwalk Road. They just opened it recently. And you can go on this bridge, on the other bridge from that road. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned ownership. Could you comment on, the little one that was only 20 feet long?
Yes.
On private property. Presumably owned by those,
Yes, they paid for it to get built so they could get across the brook.
so how about the others? You mentioned one state owned, that's by the town?
The state-owned one, all the others are owned by the towns, the various towns that they're in, except the one that's part of somebody's driveway. It's actually a nice little bridge. It's just somebody's driveway.
So when you think about the time, the kind of roads and traffic, when these were originally built,
Right.
how things have changed.
Yeah, they didn't have heavy cars like they do now. So they had, and the cars are moving much faster, and it's the speed of the car that causes as much damage to the bridge as the weight of the car, because it creates a ripple effect in the lumber. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm curious as to why covered bridges were built in the first place, and is it particular to New England? Covered bridges?
No, it's not particular to New England. There's quite a few in Pennsylvania. They put a roof on them so they last longer.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to plow them. The snow damages them a lot, and the ice damages them a lot. So keeping the rain and the snow and the ice off them, they last a lot. A well-built covered bridge will last 100 years. Anyone else? Hang on, go ahead. Yes, yes, but they're not bringing ice into the bridge like we had a couple of weeks ago. They did bring snow into the bridge because everybody had sleighs. But it was just enough snow for the sleigh. Yes.
What came first for you, interest in covered bridges or knowledge of how they were
Repeat the question, please. Repeat the question.
Sure. She wants to know what got me interested in covered bridges in the first place. I bought a copy of Grayton. Milton Grayton is the dad. He's the one who started the business. And this was 25 years ago. And 25 years ago, when you bought a book, you mailed them a check and they mailed you the book because there was no Amazon or anything like that. So I mailed a check to the Graydon family for a book, and they called me because they wanted to know why somebody who wasn't working for a town wanted one of their books. And that's kind of what started me on learning all this, is speaking with them. So, anyone else? Yes,
Do
sir.
you have any documentation for shoveling snow on the covered bridges? Danny Pratt used to say that. Now think about this. You've got that three-span bridge. Who's going to stop, shovel snow into this thing, and then shovel it back out when they leave? And how long would that take to do that? I find that crazy.
They would use a wagon with a board on the back.
So that you've seen that.
Yes. It's almost like a snow plow, and they would drag a little snow out.
So that was professionally done then. It wasn't somebody
Yeah, the town did
got
that.
out of their sleigh and shoveled it in.
Yeah. The triple span bridge on the Connecticut River was originally a toll bridge that the state of New Hampshire bought. So whoever owned the bridge would drag snow on it. I mean, the middle of the bridge didn't get any, it took a while for the middle of the bridge to get snow. But yeah, it was just a board on the back of it, and they just drag it through. It doesn't take much. It only took about 1 inch of snow for a sleigh. Yes, sir.
The 20-foot bridge on the private property?
Yes.
Any idea what they spent to build that?
I have no clue. They wouldn't let me near it. They weren't very friendly. So I just snuck on their property, took a few pictures, and booked it out of there. So I know nothing about that bridge. Yes.
I'm wondering, you talk about Graydon, are they just doing replacement bridges or preservation of bridges? Are there new wooden bridges being built, covered bridges?
There are new wooden covered bridges being built.
For what purpose? Is it simply for, for what purpose?
The people, well, like the people in Stowe, Vermont, didn't want a steel bridge. It's the center of the town. It's kind of like the Sturbridge Town Green. If you had a choice between a wooden covered bridge there or a steel bridge, which one would you pick? The wooden one was actually cheaper than the steel one. Not by much, but, and it's just such a pretty bridge.
So they're doing it for primarily, are they doing it places for aesthetic reasons or nostalgic reasons? I guess I'm just curious what.
They get hired to build a bridge. They don't ask why. They built a huge triple span one in Pennsylvania for a place that's a lot like Old Sturbridge Village. And they wanted a covered bridge to get onto the property.
That makes sense.
So that was...
So they're not replacing covered bridge. They are doing some.
They do a lot of maintenance work on covered bridges.
But the new bridges aren't necessarily replacing.
The steel bridges?
Yeah, or old covered bridges that have fallen away or something.
Yes. They typically, the state typically wants a steel bridge, just because it holds a lot more weight. Like that bridge in Stowe is only an 8-ton bridge, so you can't take an oil truck across it. But there's other bridges near it where you can take an oil truck across. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea how many covered bridges that have been in Massachusetts? That have been lost to floods or fires or whatever?
Yes, quite a few. There's a book over here that I got at the Village Bookshop that's covered bridges in Massachusetts, and it's full of covered bridges, none of which exist today, except a few. Anyone else? Yes.
I think that there is a story from the 36 flood on the Connecticut River in which the river was covered with a lot of covered bridges.
Yes.
One of the far north ones went out, floated off,
floated off and took all the other ones out, all the way down the river. Yes, that was very common.
Perfect example. Probably all those bridges are very solid bridges.
Yes, they were, but they float.
They float.
It's like if you've ever seen Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, bumble spouts, bridges float. Anyone else? Yes.
My mother grew up in Windsor, Vermont,
Oh, yeah.
and the covered bridge there when she was a little girl cost money to go over.
Yes, it was a toll bridge.
It was a toll
For the longest time, it was a toll
house
bridge.
right beside the bridge had a cutout in its house, and that collected the money.
Yes,
It cost a quarter to drive over it.
yes,
At that time, and 10 cents to walk over.
right. And if you were leading animals, it cost even more.
Well, the blueberry picking in Cornish was better than it was in Windsor.
Mm-hmm.
And all these, well, they were little kids, middle-aged kids, 10 to 5. They'd get together. They didn't have 10 cents, these kids at that time. So they have some that would distract the collector.
I think in 1936, the state of New Hampshire bought the bridge and stopped the tolls because they weren't very popular. Anyone else? Yes.
I might have missed this in the beginning. What's the longest bridge in Massachusetts?
The longest bridge in Massachusetts is the one in Ware, which is the one that's about 20 minutes from here.
How long is it?
That's what I'm looking at. I want to get an exact number here. It is 137 feet long, and it's a single span. And it's in beautiful condition. Yes, sir.
May I correct you?
Yes, you may.
That bridge is in Gilbertville,
Yeah, the Gilbertville.
in the town of Hardwick.
Gilbertville.
So you're not anywhere. You can reach it by road coming out of there.
It is in Gilbertville. But it's called the Ware Hardwick Bridge.
Maybe.
And it's listed, the GPS coordinates are for Hardwick.
Right on Route 32.
Yeah, it's right off of Route 32 on Bridge Street. All covered bridges are on Bridge Street. Just about every single one. Anyone else?
All right, thank you, Rich. One more point, we mentioned the bridge at Old Sturbridge Village, being a gift. And the story I've heard is actually that George King, who drives the horses, this is what he tells, that the town of Dummerston, Vermont, wanted to get rid of it because they thought it was going to need repairs, and they want to get a modern bridge. So they sold it to the village for $1. If they went up and took it and bring it back. Because they wanted to replace it with a metal bridge that would last much longer. So that covered bridge they sold for $1 is still here, standing, and they replaced the metal bridge, I think 2 or 3 times up in Dummerston. So much for
George, come by.
Thank you again for coming. We'll see you in, what's the next month? March. Thank you very much.
Very interesting, thank you.
Come up and look at the books. Like he said, Rich has a few books up here that has some illustrations.
What did he say? Spruce or? Yeah, he said it was hemlock. Hemlock. That's could be a hard. Well, hemlock is a softwood. Yeah, it's harder than what pine is.
Pine, yeah, but it's not like chestnut would
No,
be.
chestnut is really.
Yeah, I mean they built house stills framed out of chestnut. Left. I think so.
I think these two are the same bridge.
Nice talking to you.
The one at the village now. When you look, it's set down. It's set down.
The one,
The one you walk across and right on the road where the
that's
horse is going.
the other one is that's the one at Florida Way.